Welcome to the Qualified Expert series from Subthesis. This is video 1, so let us set expectations honestly before anything else. This course is education about the expert determination pathway, not a certification, and nothing here is legal advice. Finishing it does not by itself make anyone a qualified expert, and I will be specific later about exactly which parts of the job a video series cannot give you. What it does is map the entire body of knowledge the role requires, in order, with the sources named so you can go deeper wherever you need to. 15 videos across 8 modules. Subscribe so the series reaches you in sequence, and the companion materials for every lesson are at subthesis.com. The Office for Civil Rights will never hand you a certificate. There is no exam, no license, no federal registry of approved experts, and no accredited program that confers the title. For most professions, that would be a dead end. Here, it is the opening, because the regulation asks for something you can actually build, appropriate knowledge of and experience with generally accepted statistical and scientific principles and methods. Knowledge and experience. That is the whole bar. Nobody can gate you out, and nobody can hand it to you either. If you can defend your methods, you are the credential. This series is a complete map of the knowledge half and a concrete plan for the experience half, built from the regulation itself, the regulator's guidance, the statistical literature, the attack case history, the laws that still apply after HIPAA lets go, and the way real engagements actually run. Today, what this work is, why the opportunity exists, who this course is for, what it honestly will not do for you, and exactly what the next 14 videos cover. If you take one thing from this orientation, take this. The people who succeed in this field are not the ones who memorize the most. They are the ones who learn to write down why they decided what they decided, in a way a stranger could check. 4 objectives for this orientation. First, you will be able to explain what an expert determination is and where it sits among the ways health data gets shared. Second, you will be able to state why no government certification exists and why that is a deliberate design choice rather than a gap someone forgot to fill. Third, you will have the full map of all 15 videos across 8 modules, so you know where every topic lands and can return to any of them later as reference. And fourth, you will be able to decide your own path through the material, because the person who wants to become an expert and the person who hires one need different depths from the same course. Along the way, I will be equally clear about what this course cannot do, because a promise you cannot keep is worse than no promise. Notice that none of those 4 objectives is do a determination. That comes later, and it comes with practice rather than with viewing. Today is orientation, and orientation done properly saves you from learning the map and the terrain at the same time. Start with the problem it solves. Health data is enormously valuable for research, public health, and medical artificial intelligence, and it is also among the most tightly regulated information there is. HIPAA offers exactly one exit. If data is properly de-identified, it stops being protected health information, and the privacy rule no longer restricts it. There are 2 ways to get through that exit. The first is Safe Harbor, a checklist. Remove 18 categories of identifiers, including all geography below the state level and every date element except the year. It is simple, mechanical, and brutal to data utility, because a dataset with no dates cannot support longitudinal research, and one with no geography cannot support community health work. The second way is expert determination. A qualified person analyzes the actual re-identification risk of the actual data going to an actual recipient, applies statistical methods to reduce that risk, determines that the risk is very small, and documents the methods and results in writing. That is a professional opinion grounded in mathematics rather than a checklist, and it is what lets a dataset keep exact treatment intervals or finer geography when the analysis genuinely supports it. Notice the three things that phrase quietly requires. Actual data, meaning you profile the file rather than trust the schema. An actual recipient, meaning risk is not a property of the data alone, but of the data plus who receives it under what agreement. And documentation, meaning the artifact you produce is a written argument, not a cleaned file. That is the job. Not deleting columns, but measuring risk, choosing defensible thresholds, applying transformations, and writing an argument that survives review by someone who was not in the room. One more distinction to file away now, because people confuse it constantly. A limited data set is not de-identified data. It is protected health information with some identifiers removed, shared under a data use agreement, and it stays inside HIPAA the whole time. Expert determination is the only route besides safe harbor that takes data out. Module 1 gives you the rule's exact words, and every phrase in it turns out to matter. Let me make that concrete, because the definition you cannot picture is hard to learn from. Here's the shape of the artifact you are working toward in about 90 seconds. An expert receives two things, never one: a dataset and the name of the party that will receive it, along with the terms under which they will hold it. The expert profiles the actual file, column by column, and classifies every field. Direct identifiers, which come out. Quasi-identifiers, which are the ordinary facts like age, sex, and location that carry no name and yet in combination single people out. Sensitive attributes, which are what an adversary would want to learn, and everything else. Then the expert measures. Baseline re-identification risk, computed with a named estimator against a named population under a named adversary model. That produces a number. The expert compares that number to a threshold chosen in advance and justified with citations rather than with instinct. If the baseline fails, and it usually does, the expert transforms the data. Generalize ages into bands. Roll 5-digit zip codes up to 3. Shift dates while preserving the intervals researchers need. Suppress the handful of outlier records that no generalization can rescue. Then, the expert measures again on the transformed file, and keeps going until the number sits under the threshold or the utility is gone, whichever arrives first. Finally, and this is the part people forget, the expert writes a report that states the scope, the assumptions, the adversary model, the threshold and its source, the transformations applied, the residual risk that remains, and the conditions under which the determination stops being valid. Then a signature and a date. That is the deliverable. Not a cleaned file, a written argument with a cleaned file attached. Here's the whole discipline in one small example, and it is deliberately small enough that you can check the arithmetic yourself. 4 records, no real patience. On the left, the data as received. Every record carries the same 3-digit zip prefix, and records A, B, and C are all women in the 40 to 49 age band. Those 3 hide inside a group of 3. Record D does not. D is the only person in the 90s and the only man, which makes D a group of 1. In the language you will learn in Module 3, K equals 3 for the first group and K equals 1 for D, and a group of 1 is not de-identified under any standard. Now look at the right. Widen the age band to 40 and over, suppress sex entirely, and all 4 records become indistinguishable from one another. A group of 4. Same 4 records, a very different risk. Measure, transform, then measure again. That loop is the job, and everything ahead in this series is the detail inside it. Now the market, because you should know whether this is worth 2 years of your attention. 3 forces are pushing demand up structurally rather than faddishly. Real-world evidence, the pharmaceutical use of actual patient data to study how treatments perform outside trials, needs longitudinal detail that Safe Harbor destroys. Artificial intelligence in medicine needs enormous volumes of clinical text, and unstructured notes cannot be protected by any checklist, which makes expert determination the only viable legal path. And health data sharing arrangements keep multiplying, each one needing someone qualified to sign. Against that demand sits a documented shortage. The privacy profession has plenty of people who know the law, and comparatively, very few who can do statistical risk modeling on health data, a gap the professional associations themselves keep flagging. That is an unusual situation, a field with rising demand, no licensing bottleneck, and a scarce skill. The work is done in several places, and it is worth knowing them now because they are your entry points. Specialist vendors and consultancies with proprietary tooling plus in-house experts who certify the output. Synthetic data platforms, which still need experts to validate that their generators do not memorize training records. Academic honest broker offices inside medical centers, which mediate researcher access and are probably the most underrated way in. In-house privacy engineering teams at health systems and payers, and solo practitioners serving biotech companies too small for enterprise licensing. Reported fees vary widely, and every published figure is anecdotal, but engagements are commonly quoted from the tens of thousands into 6 figures for complex, multi-table, or unstructured work, running weeks to a few months. Treat that as orientation rather than a rate card. The point is simpler. The ceiling is set by your demonstrated capability because there is no gate. And one caution to balance the enthusiasm. Demand for the title is rising faster than demand for the competence behind it, which means the field is also attracting people who will sign things they cannot defend. Do not be one of them, and learn to recognize them, because you will be asked to review their work. Here's the entire legal qualification, quoted from 45 CFR section 164.514B1. A person with appropriate knowledge of and experience with generally accepted statistical and scientific principles and methods for rendering information not individually identifiable. Read it again slowly, because everything about this profession follows from it. No degree named, no certification named, no registry, no licensing board, no continuing education requirement, no professional body with authority to admit or expel. Just knowledge, experience, and methods that the scientific community generally accepts. The regulator confirmed this directly in its 2012 guidance, stating that no specific professional degree or certification program exists for designating who is an expert. That relevant expertise comes through various routes of education and experience, and that in an enforcement situation, it would review the expert's professional experience, training, and actual experience using de-identification methodologies. Notice what the absence of a credential really means. It does not lower the bar, it moves it. Instead of proving you passed something once, you prove your work would withstand examination by a skeptical peer, every time, on every engagement, in hindsight, judged by people who were not there when you decided. That is a harder standard in some ways, and a fairer one in others. It also means this course has a very concrete job, to give you the knowledge that phrase demands, and to show you exactly how practitioners accumulate the experience half, since no exam will ever substitute for it. Notice one more thing in that sentence, the word appropriate. Appropriate to what? to the data in front of you. Knowledge that is appropriate for a county-level immunization count is not appropriate for longitudinal oncology records with free text notes. And part of professional judgment is declining engagements that sit outside what you can defend. Saying no is a competence, and it is one this course will keep returning to. Two audiences, and both are welcome, though the course is built for the first. The primary audience is the aspiring expert, data analysts, biostatisticians, epidemiologists, health informatics professionals, privacy engineers, and quantitative people generally who want to add this to their practice. If you can read a frequency table, understand what a probability means, and are willing to do arithmetic on a small data set, you have the prerequisites. There is no calculus in this course. There is counting, proportions, and clear thinking about who might attack a data set and how. Everything statistical is taught from first principles, and modules 3 and 4 walk a 10-row example you can follow entirely in your head, plus a realistically scaled composite engagement that shows what the same reasoning looks like at 50,000 records. The secondary audience is the person who buys or evaluates determinations. Privacy officers, compliance leaders, general counsel, and research administrators. You do not need to compute anything, but you do need to recognize competent work from confident work, and every video ends with takeaways, frames so that you can. If that is you, the highest value videos are the rule itself, the guidance module, the threshold video, and the practice module, because those are where good work and bad work look visibly different. There is also a third group I should name, students and career changers who are simply curious whether this field suits them. Watch the first 4 videos. If computing equivalence classes by hand sounds interesting rather than tedious, you have your answer. Whichever of the 3 you are, how to move through the material differs, and that gets its own slide shortly, because a course you watch in the wrong order teaches you less than the same course watched in sequence. Here is the whole map, 15 videos, 8 modules after this one. Module 1, the Regulatory Foundation, 2 videos, the de-identification standard and its 2 methods, then the Expert Determination rule read word by word, because every phrase in it is load-bearing. Module 2, the Regulator's 2012 Guidance, 2 videos. First, the question everyone asks, who counts as an expert? Then, the analytical heart, why very small risk has no number, and the 3 principles that generate one: replicability, data source availability, and distinguishability. Module 3, Statistical Foundations, 2 videos, Identifiers and Uniqueness, where you learn to compute equivalence classes on our running example. Then the de-identification toolbox, the transformations and the formal models, K anonymity, L diversity, T closeness, and an honest placement of differential privacy. Module 4, Risk Assessment, 2 videos, Thinking Like the Adversary, the Prosecutor, Journalist, and Marketer models. Then, setting and defending a threshold with precedents you can actually cite. Module 5, 1 video and the longest in the series, the Re-Identification Case Canon, Governor Weld through deep learning on heart rhythms, 10 landmark cases told accurately, including the corrections most retellings omit. Module 6, 1 video, the Career module, Where Experts Come From, Why No Certification Exists on Purpose, the Evidence File, the Credentials Weighed Honestly, and a 24-month pathway. Module 7, Practice, 2 videos, running a full engagement end-to-end, then the Determination Report and Liability. Module 8, Synthesis, 2 videos. Video 14 is Beyond HIPAA, the Regulatory Overlay, the State Laws, the Federal Trade Commission's Theories, contract terms, and international rules that still bind data HIPAA has released, because leaving HIPAA is not leaving the law. Then, video 15 is the finale, the misconceptions you will have to correct out loud, the frequently asked questions, and your next steps. Watch in order the first time. A word on how to actually use this, because 15 videos is a lot of material, and there is a right way to move through it. First pass, watch in order, without skipping. The later modules assume vocabulary the earlier ones build, and jumping to the practice module before you can compute an equivalence class feels like reading the last chapter of a textbook first. One pass, in sequence, and every lesson is written to stand alone on a second viewing, even though it does not on a first. Second, when you sit down to do real work, 4 videos are worth re-watching before you start rather than after you are stuck. Video 3-06, Identifiers and Uniqueness, because field classification is where most weak determinations go wrong. Video 4-08, Thinking like the adversary, because the adversary model you adopt determines every number that follows it. Video 4-09, Setting and Defending a Threshold, because that is the choice a reviewer attacks first. And video 7-13, The Determination Report and Liability, because the report is the only part of your work anyone will ever read. Those 4 are the working set. Third, if you are here as a privacy officer, a compliance leader, or counsel rather than as a future expert, there is a shorter route through the same material. Video 1-03, The Rule Word by Word. Video 2-05, Why Very Small Risk Has No Number. Video 4-09, The Threshold. And video 7-13, The Report. Those 4 teach you to tell competent work from confident work, which is the whole job on your side of the table. And fourth, the companion materials are at subthesis.com. Download the Springfield extract before video 3-06 so you can follow along with your own hands rather than watch mine. Now the part of the orientation most courses skip. 3 things this series will not do for you, stated plainly so you can plan around them. 1. It is not a certification, and it does not confer one because no certification for this work exists anywhere. Nobody, including me, can issue you a credential that satisfies the regulation, and any program that implies otherwise is selling you a logo. What you will have at the end is a map, a vocabulary, a citation list, and a plan. 2. It cannot give you supervised repetitions, and repetitions are how this field is actually learned. Your first several determinations should be written under the review of an established expert, inside a health system, a consultancy, or a university honest broker office, precisely so that someone experienced catches the judgment call you did not know you were making. Video 11 tells you how to find that arrangement. 3. Statistical fluency comes from doing, not from watching. You can watch me compute an equivalence class distribution perfectly and still stall the first time you face a real file with missing values, inconsistent coding, and a client on the phone. So do the exercises. Pause where I ask you to pause. Run the 10-row example yourself. Pull public microdata and practice generalization and suppression with open source tools until the arithmetic is boring. And one standing rule that outlives this course: do not sign a determination you could not defend, line by line, to a hostile reviewer 2 years from now. If that sounds cautious, good. That caution is most of the profession. And to be fair to the course, here is what it does do so the ledger is balanced. It gives you the regulation and the guidance in their own words rather than in summary. It teaches the statistics from first principles with worked numbers you can reproduce. It tells you the attack literature accurately, including the corrections. And it shows you what a real engagement and a real report look like end to end. That is the knowledge half, complete. The experience half is yours to go and get. 3 takeaways from this orientation. First, expert determination is a learnable statistical discipline, not a licensed profession. There is no exam to pass and no registry to join, which means the path is open and the standard is demonstrated competence. Second, the regulation's only bar is appropriate knowledge of and experience with generally accepted statistical and scientific principles and methods. A phrase worth memorizing because your future work will be measured against those exact words, in hindsight, by people who were not in the room when you decided. Third, this course maps the whole body of knowledge in order, from the rules text to a signed report and the laws that apply after it, with the sources named so you can go deeper wherever you need to. 15 videos, 8 modules, 1 discipline. Next video, we read the standard itself and find out precisely where the line sits between regulated health data and free data, because your entire practice consists of moving information across that line, defensibly, in writing. Module 1 starts next with the de-identification standard, the 2 methods, and why the limited dataset is not what people think it is. Subscribe so the series reaches you in order, and find the full roadmap at subthesis.com.